Welcome to episode 111 of the Omnigamers Club podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including Tarzo's. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark USA. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hello, Mark. Trying to remember how intros work again, how podcasts and technology works again. Coming back in from our summer vacation.
It's been a considerably long time, like a month and a half, maybe?
Yes, yeah, a bit rejuvenated, I hope, both of us. Lots of things to talk about today. So, maybe a little bit of a grab bag. Of topics from the past month, but also just checking in with each other, with everyone, and the state of everything going on, and see how we feel about games right now.
Yeah, I think we should catch up live. Let's dive right into it.
Yeah. So a couple of little bits of news I had picked up. Obviously, as we're recording right now, Gen Con is just wrapping, and I don't want to dwell on that too much. For one thing, it's very hard to know what's happening at Gen Con. There's not very little in terms of there's no big E3 press conference video stream to watch, to check in on all of it. You've got to either go in piecemeal to the individual publishers or go check out the BGG geek list of 600 games and just browse page by page. But a couple of little tidbits I did pick up from this last weekend is that Olivia Lothery, who joined us for our Feast for Odin episode, reached out to let me know that The Danes, the long-rumoured standalone sequel to A Feast for Odin, has officially been announced. I think it's slated for crowdfunding Q1 2026. I do wonder why an Uwe Rosenberg game needs to be crowdfunded. I think it speaks to how broken the broader state of the industry is right now. But excited to see the next evolution for A Feast for Odin.
There you go. I didn't realize it was standalone, so that could be exciting.
Mm-hmm. It was. I think it started 10 years ago as an expansion, and has gradually just taken on more and more pieces until it's now a standalone thing. So I'm seeing it a little bit as Caverna is to Agricola, this possibly will be to A Feast for Odin.
Interesting to see where the evolution will go, because A Feast for Odin is not a small little kitty cat. It's a pretty sizable
Yes, it's due to be a BT box.
There you go. Any other exciting announcements that you heard of?
The only other thing that stood out is Restoration, who very helpfully do actually have a press release as to all of their announcements. Announced that one thing, or they have a new campaign story expansion for Thunder Road Vendetta from Jerry Hawthorne, I think it is, of Plaid Hat Games.
That's right.
But he's written for a lot of their sort of Crossroad games, and I've really appreciated his story, his writing there. So looking forward to that. And they announced another expansion for Unmatched, which we recently covered. A series, a system that I'm not entirely excited about, but they did announce that Hellboy is coming, and which just seems like a perfect match. That sort of punch 'em up, fist fighting action. It's a good tonal vibe, a match to Unmatched.
Yeah, it's a pulpy fit. I
Yes.
mean, they did the Marvel, they did the the Cobble and Fog.
Yeah.
So kind of like a nice blend in between those. Yeah, I think that totally works.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about, Mark?
Yeah, just to follow up upon a subject we talked about just before the break. I was mentioning that I was getting interested in this Japanese RPG, tabletop RPG, called Sword World.
That's right.
As I promised, I was going to reveal this later, but I did end up picking up some of the books for it.
I was going to ask. Excellent.
This is one of the 3 source books, and believe it or not, this is like manga size. It's tiny, if you can imagine it. It's like here's next to my phone. And this little guy, one copy of this source book compared to D&D costs 900 yen, which is about $8.
Wow.
So literally anyone can get this if you're interested in RPGs and you can read Japanese.
Cheap enough for everyone in your party to have their own copy.
Exactly, which I think is more egalitarian, and it's still chock full of stuff. There's lots of pages in here. But that's not really why I mentioned it. I just heard some news that they're doing an official printed translation of Sword World RPG into English. It's going to be through crowdfunding, and it's forthcoming information, so I don't know a lot, except it's fully above board, official, with the original creators group SNE involved. And this should be really exciting because it's kind of like seeing a parallel world. of fantasy tabletop RPGs, and I feel like fantasy RPGs were always didn't really need a leg up. They were always the most popular format, but alternatives to D&D like Daggerheart and MCDM seem to be really cresting at the moment. Seem to be gathering a lot of steam. So maybe this could be another pillar.
I don't think we'll ever take down D&D, but its monopoly does seem to be weakening somewhat. So
yeah. I don't need people to lose their precious copies of D&D. They can happily play that forever and ever. It's just Hasbro's not a great company. They're not looking after players, and it's good for people to have options.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully they can keep it similarly affordable. What with shipping and everything. With Kickstarters these days, not necessarily given.
Right. One last thing before I move on from Sword World is that I told you that this little like digest-sized book, all in black and white, is really cheap, super inexpensive. But they do have these like more kind of full-color, glossy guide books, which do come with the more expensive pricing, but they have like really nice, lush art to them. So those do exist as companion pieces to some of the more inexpensive. It's good to have those options,
basically, whichever your price point is.
Yeah, seems a bit more egalitarian. I like it.
Excellent. A couple of other quick updates, largely just checking in on previous games we've covered, basically. But if you listen to our episode on Let's Go to Japan, which I guess you'll be talking about very shortly, I mean, that is actually going to Japan. If you were keeping bets on what the next game in that sequence was, they've officially announced the next game will be Let's Go to, drumroll, France.
They have a whole world of options. But that's two exciting picks. Yeah, France is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know much about France other than the Quebecois influence over here in Canada, but I'm sure it seems like a good fit. Yeah.
So just like Let's Go to Japan, they're going to divide the country up into only two locations.
Yeah.
And only talk about those, right?
Paris and Luxembourg, I guess, maybe. I don't know. It's Luxembourg.
Luxembourg's in a different country.
Okay, let's cut that.
Yeah.
Surely my ignorance.
Marseille or something. Who knows? Nice. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's in France. Look at us, geography heads here. No, that's good. I mean, like, Let's Go to Japan was fine. I feel like there was something a little bit hinky about that core drafting mechanic. But as a concept, it's really fun. As a production, I like the little biddies in the deluxe set as well. So, yeah, maybe the Let's Go to France will be exciting as well. Hey, they also have high-speed trains there in France, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, they could just do London and France and the train going between the two, right?
Yeah, channel expansion.
Anyway,
nice.
One other thing I wanted to discuss, partly in just the interest of checking in on a bit of a statement of our values here. Previously, we've discussed the BDS movement in terms of boycotting Microsoft and specifically Xbox Game Pass, which we'd committed to. And I did see just this week there was an update from Endless Mode, which is a new website from Paste, I believe, that's putting out some good work. And they put out an article basically checking in on where that boycott is right now, which is to say largely it's not being talked about very much, but I do want to recommit that we are still boycotting Microsoft, Xbox, and Game Pass. My Game Pass, I've had several free months banked up, literally expiring tomorrow, but I've not used it for the last month or two. So yeah, I just wanted to restate our assessment there. I'm having to re-explore options for like how we cover games. We both relied on Game Pass a lot for covering games on the podcast, so we'll need to review our options there. You know, it's hard to know how effective this is going to be, but I think being true to our values and expressing solidarity with the Palestinian people right now in what few ways we can.
Yeah, it's a very small effort on our part. Obviously, I don't think we're going to be shaping mountains with our efforts here, but it's the literal least we can do. My boycott has been going strong. I have been off of it for a few months at this point, and it's really a shame because there was a couple of really nice games that were coming out at the time, and I actually have a game that I fully beat wrote notes down fully intended to cover on this very show that I can't talk about. So I'm obviously hoping that the conflict, the war on Palestine will be over in due course as soon as possible, not the least for which people's lives can carry on and lives will not be lost. But of course, to allow us to continue to play Microsoft games again, which they do put out good stuff. So, it's really unfortunate.
Well, I had been thinking a lot about just how difficult it is to hold companies accountable these days. There has been so much consolidation in gaming and technology that, like, if a publisher or a distributor does something you disagree with, trying to hold them accountable when so many other publishers and other games are under that umbrella. Like Asmodee put out some rubbish AI rule summary of Flip 7. If I'm really upset about Asmodee, like I can't very well boycott Asmodee. How many publishers are under that? It's tough.
It extends to other things that are happening right now, like with the content bans, the adult content bans for platforms like Steam and Itch.
How do you take on Visa, right?
How do you take on Visa? How do you take on MasterCard? Because then basically you can't play anything, which is fine with me. I could probably play for a good long while with games that I already own. That's not a problem to me, but you're right. You can't boycott everything that's bad in this world, or it would be very hard to.
Yeah, it's something I've been struggling with. I need to, on one hand, need to be a little more tactical in where I direct my frustration, I think. But I do want to be true to my values and not support companies that don't line up with those values. It is increasingly hard, especially when we want to talk about a wide variety of games and topics. There are at the same time, it does allow more space for those smaller indie games and topics to discuss as well, hopefully.
Right. And on a more concrete front, I think we'll be joining arms with other outfits, like no pun included, and we won't be covering any CGE games.
Yes, so that's what I was leading into. Yeah, this last week, CGE, that is Czech Games Edition, announced that they are publishing a Harry Potter Codenames along with various other versions. I believe there was a Harry Potter Codenames in 2018. This is not just a reprint. This is a new game, and of course, I don't want to dwell on it, but it goes without saying that J.K. Rowling has been funneling so many funds into anti-trans hate and bigotry that we do not want to support. I know there was a huge controversy over Hogwarts Legacy just a couple of years ago, and there is currently a campaign to basically boycott CGE and request that they. I don't know what a meaningful action means in this case, because in some ways the game is already coming out, it's already been committed to. I don't think just making a donation as some kind of like carbon tax, like to counterbalance that, is enough. The harm has been done in giving money to J.K. Rowling. So we'll see what comes out of this. I know that CG is talking to a couple of people in the trans community. So I hope that they can come up with some meaningful action there.
Right, and as for us, I was just thinking it's easy enough to say we cut CGE out of our coverage, but are we also going to cut Warner Brothers video games out of our coverage as well? Because they obviously put out the video game amongst other good video games.
I mean, Hasbro has Harry Potter Monopoly, I'm sure. How can you tell people don't play Dungeons and Dragons because Harry Potter Monopoly exists? And how can you meaningfully challenge these companies? It's tough.
Well, I have a bunch of good D&D alternatives that they can check out, but yeah.
We're not playing D&D.
Yeah, but, it really extends forever, and I don't want to harp onto this, but, this really affected our trip planning to Japan. As a preview of our main topic, we went to Osaka this past month, and part of our consideration was, are we going to go to Universal Studios Japan? And we mostly said no because of the exorbitant price tag, but also half of our ticket is going to be funneled towards J.K. Rowling and her Harry Potter part of the theme park. So, that was one of the primary reasons why we said no. It's like, no thanks. We don't want to send our money that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to say, no ethical consumption under capitalism, but we do have to draw the line somewhere. We are drawing the line here with CGE. We'll monitor this circumstance and see what comes with other publishers. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there are several publishers on my personal blacklist for various reasons. Some meaningful, some more petty, and it's hard to know when to revisit those publishers. When has it been long enough? When can you reconsider that they maybe have changed their ways? But usually they'll just stay quiet and hope everyone forgets about it. So
Yeah, I guess we just have to be vigilant, check in every now and again, and see, where they stand and where we stand.
yeah, so yeah, stay tuned to that. I'll link in the show notes. I think Rascal News had a good story as to some of the responses around that particular controversy.
Very nice. All right, I think we should move on to happier topics then.
Let's do that. You've already teased some talk about your Japan trip, so why don't you continue with that?
Yeah. Are we going to do it like all my stuff and then all your stuff, or are we going to?
Yes, let's do that. Yeah. So if we're not clear, we don't aren't actually talking about specific games this episode. We're each going to be talking a little bit about our respective trips. I think each of those do have some game-related topics associated with them. So yeah, why don't you lead us off with let's go to Japan.
Yeah, that's right. That's the title of my segment for this episode. Yeah. So I went to Japan for a month between the end of June and near the end of July. Just recently came back, and I'm I think just now getting over the jet lag. But it was a really excellent trip, and it was primarily family oriented. So I have some family in Japan. I spent some time with my immediate family. Basically, we rented a house for an entire month in the middle of Tokyo, and it was actually cheaper than renting multiple hotels, and that's primarily why we did it. You get a bit of a discount for renting for a whole month at some places, and that allowed us to take a trip in Japan in the middle of our trip to Japan. So we were able to leave our luggage there, and in middle 2 weeks we took a train slash car trip through all the way to Kansai, where to Osaka for a few days, Kyoto for one day, and a number of days driving back through Shizuoka, where Mount Fuji is, for instance.
Did you get negative points for taking the train multiple times though?
No, we took the train very efficiently. We did not jump back between Osaka and Tokyo, which I would not recommend. It's very time consuming. But it was really fun. So my family has been to Japan quite a lot. My wife and I have probably been there about 6 times in the last 15 years. So, a decent amount. A lot of stuff is very, very familiar to me there. But it's still cool to see things that are changing, and, new things pop up all the time, because Tokyo is an exciting mega city with, tens of millions of people getting up to lots of exciting stuff, not the least of which is video game entertainment and publishing in general. So a couple topics I want to talk about is, where we hung out. So I have tons of recommendations and places that, we've been to in the past that are super fun, but we didn't check out so much this time, just because we kind of been there, done that. But this time around, we spent some time around Ikebukuro. That's area in northwest Tokyo, and it's kind of like the new geek center of Tokyo. I think formerly in the past, probably most people have thought of that as Akihabara, Akiba in other words, which still certainly exists, still is popular than ever, but is now really kind of it's a bit of a shell of what it was. It's more about kind of the duty-free shops and kind of kitschy, tourist-oriented stores rather than anything authentically Japanese.
I was watching an interesting YouTube video on that recently, how the city has basically cracked down on what appears to be immature fan culture, basically, and I mean both sort of triple X rated shops, I guess, but also certain fandom and that sort of thing has been sort of cracked down on. Perhaps it's pushed some of the older shops out.
I don't know if that's really actually the case. I don't think anyone, in the government said, "Hey, this is a no-go. You can't have this sort of stuff anymore." It's more like unfortunate, realistic circumstances like the economy.
Well, yeah.
COVID happened. That's going to do a big number on, maid cafes and game arcades and karaoke joints and things like that. Obviously, all things that are central to that part of Japan. And a lot of things have been shifting away anyway. So I mentioned Ikebukuro. That's an area where a lot of the sort of the nerd culture stuff was moving towards anyways. So they opened up the Animate flagship store, and Animate is sort of like a mega center for all nerd stuff, anyways. And it's very, very like corporate. It's very sort of like big box Japan style, so big like vertical tower with many floors. And they have things like gachas, they have art prints, they have mangas, they have video games, they have voice over CDs for like audio plays with the anime voice actors and this and that. And they also have some cool things like pop-up spaces, art galleries of like animation cells, artworks from manga and anime artists. So there's a lot of stuff, exciting stuff happening. And the big headquarters for that opened up in Ikebukuro. And they even have kind of anime and nerd related sort of activities that go along with this. These are not things that I did, but that I've heard of. Like you can do a anime voiceover experience. So you could voice over like animation as a sort of like an interactive activity, or you can do the sort of like interactive dance fan routines for popular idol groups or things like that. Like they sell experiences for tourists to do those sorts of things.
It's solo karaoke sort of style experience, I guess.
Well, it's very actually group oriented.
Okay.
So they have these things. Fans for idol groups have these like highly choreographed dance moves, and they have these like very specific like LED light sticks, and they have these moves. It's really something to behold. You check it out on YouTube if you're interested. Well, they offer tourist experiences related to that as well. But all that to say, Ikebukuro has a lot of other stuff going for it as well. It's got the biggest gacha kind of facility in all of Japan and thus all of the world there. So where they have something like, I don't know the exact amount, but literally thousands of machines where you could just turn or spin around in any direction and then walk for like 20 minutes and you won't reach the end of the machines that are on the floor. So just kind of ridiculous there. That's in the Sunshine 60 development there, which is sort of the heart of that neighborhood. And also in Sunshine 60 is basically everything you could want as a Pokemon fan. So one entire floor of this development, Sunshine 60 floor tower, is dedicated pretty much exclusively to Pokemon. So they have Pokemon Suites, which is a spin-off of the Pokemon Cafe.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Of which they have the Pokemon Cafe is a sit-in place. This is like a counter where you can get Pokemon themed sweets, including drinks, like fancy parfaits, and then waffles that are decorated with the Pokemon characters. Awesome. So my family participated in that, and we got a first-hand experience.
Speaking of which, I think they just announced as part of the Nintendo Pokemon Direct an actual Pokemon theme park, right?
Yeah, they have a theme park opening up in the west of Tokyo called Poke Experience Kanto.
It's surprising it took that long for that to happen. It's it's a long running franchise, obviously.
They had a kind of like a very like minimal
sort of
theme park experience, but they have sort of renewed it and made it more interactive, I think.
Cool.
And that's in the Yomiuri Land existing theme park that they have over there. So in addition, at Sunshine 60, they have a Pokemon TCG store. They have a Pokemon Go store, believe it or not. They have a Pokemon Center, and then what else do they have? I mentioned the Pokemon Suites as well, and then they have other Pokemon pop-up events that happen as well. So those 5 stores that I mentioned take up the majority of the floor. On top of that, they have a branch of Kittyland, which is one of the largest toy chains in Japan, and they have the Mugiwara store, which is basically the One Piece themed store.
Right.
Is also on that same floor. They have a bookstore with lots of manga, all sorts of stuff on that floor. So if you love Pokemon, that's your kind of mecca. Go there, and they have stanchions and whatever for the massive lineups that happen outside.
How crowded was it at the store?
It was crowded, but not nearly as bad as the previous time we went, which was on a weekend. So if you can get there on a weekday, I don't know. It feels like nowadays half the people in Tokyo are from outside of the country, so it's going to be busy no matter what. But you'll avoid the local crowd if you avoid the weekend. So it wasn't so bad. Yeah, the lineup to buy was probably the longest thing. You didn't have to line up to get into the Pokemon Center, but the lineup to buy was probably like a 10-minute wait.
Wow.
So pretty considerable. But I did manage to get a special request for someone that I know.
Ah, very good. Thank you.
Pokemon Nanoblock. So you can look forward to playing with this.
My wife will be very thankful.
Very soon. All right. So Akihabara has kind of shifted over into Ikebukuro. Sadly, it's kind of a passing of the torch. But Ikebukuro is really nice and fun. On top of that, there's tons of arcades, multi-story entertainment centers. They have the Gigo arcade chains there, as well as Taito Station, which are kind of competing arcade chains. Sega arcades are no longer, sadly, boohoo, they don't exist anymore. So that's a sad remnant of the Yakuza games that doesn't really exist. And they have this large multi-story entertainment center called Round One. And Round One is kind of like arcades, but more like physical activities. So they have like batting cages. They have this thing called spocha, which is like these rubbery swords. And they have all sorts of other stuff. So that's really fun too. They have karaoke.
Basically, all of the Yakuza mini games in one spot.
Exactly. You could really live out your dreams there. Really. Yakuza, the center is more Shinjuku, but yeah, Ikebukuro is a ton of fun for everyone that likes nerdy things. So I recommend that. Yeah, I could mention other topics as well, but I don't want to go on forever. So maybe should we intersperse a little bit of Australia trip?
A little bit of a connection is that, I mean, Sydney, so I should say I was in Sydney for a few weeks, basically, visiting family and visiting my old stomping grounds. I was able this time to spend a lot of time in the sort of Sydney CBD, which there actually used to be a Sega World, it was called, which was like a Sega theme park. It sadly is gone now. It's long gone now, but I was recalling fond memories of going there. But I was a little surprised how much of the sort of downtown Sydney CBD is basically Little Japan now. There's a whole strip of several blocks that is full of gacha parlors and gift shops that are all selling those sort of blind box, not quite gacha, but sort of random Japanese toys.
Yeah,
and there's a whole
there's
a whole arcades. Oh, look, the boo boo! Don't get me started on that.
Those are Chinese, I think. But yeah,
technically, yeah. But this whole arcade is basically just all like multiple stories of Japanese eateries and gift shops, and there's a Daiso and Miniso and all these shops. So yeah, quite a large part of Sydney now is heavily influenced by Japanese culture. And I did spend a little bit of time in Kinokuniya, which I had visited previously, but have a newfound appreciation for just being more into anime and manga and that now, because they have a huge selection of just, Western books and as if it were a regular bookshop, but in addition to that also have the biggest manga selection I've ever seen, and Japanese manga selection, and a huge range of art books that I could have easily spent a long time looking over. There was like one whole shelf was just Final Fantasy art books from like each of the expansions. Sorry, Final Fantasy 14 specifically.
Yeah, Kinokuniya is great, and if you have never been to Australia, well, then you can enjoy them in various cities in America as well. well,
I know they're in
especially along the West
Seattle.
Coast.
Yeah.
Seattle has as a decent sized one. I think it's in the what is it, Uajimaya complex near the stadiums there. And one I went to somewhat recently is in LA as well, in Little
Oh,
Tokyo.
okay.
There's a great sized Kinokuniya as well. It's a real Japanese bookstore chain. So it's a fantastic place to visit if you like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I spent a couple of hours there and could easily have spent a whole day taking my time browsing. I did. They had several gacha machines there, but between that and various other locations around Sydney, I did manage to collect a few gacha myself. It was tough though. They didn't really have many of the weirder ones. They're all the sort of the cutesy animals and things. I was looking for some of the more weirder sicko gacha, but maybe next time I'll keep an eye out.
Well, you might have a couple of pieces of gacha coming towards you from straight from Japan.
Excellent.
Just as a little
Look forward to
spoiler
that.
there. Yeah, lots of nerdy stuff all around. Yeah, I mean, Australia, it's so close to. I mean, it's literally not that close to Japan as
Technically
far
part of
as
the
a flight
Pacific,
goes,
I guess.
but it's in the same time zone, right? So
It's close, I think. Yeah.
I know there's a big affinity between the two nations traveling between each other, sharing culture and foods and
It's always
trends and
been the
this and that.
case. I was shocked in the last few years how much that has really exploded over there.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some other topics in Japan. One of them is to do with retro game hunting. So this is something that I've done on and off, but not really in a serious way. And this time around, I wanted to do it, dedicate some time to do it. So I was there for 30 days. So my oldest kid and I wanted to look at some retro games. We have a deal going on where we have like retro game devices like this. But we're not allowed to pirate anything. So the only thing we're allowed to do is play ROMs of games that we own, either digitally through things like Steam, games like Genesis Classics or things like that, or the Nintendo Classics, retro consoles, or legitimate cartridges that we own. So it was kind of exciting because any dusty old copy of a game we found, we could be like, yes,
Just give yourself
download
a
that.
free cross-platform upgrade.
Well, it's like a game key card, which is the latest terminology from the newer platforms. That's I'm liberally calling game key cards for games that I bought in Japan, such as this one, a boxed copy of the Super Famicom Ogre Battle
Oh.
64. Very excited. Not 64, I guess. Ogre Battle, the Super Nintendo one. And I have this literal fistful of UMDs and GBA carts
Oh wow.
and discs and cartridges for all manner of portable systems. But on top of that, I also have this literal
Oh
cracker
wow. Going hard,
crate
huh?
of. It's a little bit hard to show on screen without spilling over. But I bought something like
Your retro games
in
spill over.
collaboration with my kid, probably about 50 retro games,
Wow.
probably for an average price of 200 Canadian dollars. So, that breaks down to pretty reasonable price. It's because a lot of the games that we bought were like just dirt cheap, like $1,
Were any of
$2.
those particularly expensive? Like hard to find?
They were not barn breakers, but some of the games were, 10, 15, $20. But just because I also bought games that were so inexpensive, it sort of averaged out to a reasonable amount. So
I'm just curious which
quite
ones were
pleased.
like the most expensive. The
Yeah.
premium stuff.
As you might imagine, it's the stuff that was in box with manuals and things
okay.
like that. I wasn't too much of a stickler. I was perfectly fine to go without box, without packaging at all. But at some places, the games were so numerous, copies were so numerous that the in box and out of box was the same price.
Wow.
And as a result, I ended up getting a lot of games in boxes, and I feel like there was a kind of a happy medium where like somewhat older games were really, really, really cheap. Newer games are expensive. Really old games are expensive. So like the really old stuff, like 8-bit in box, for sure you're gonna pay a reasonable amount for, a decent price for. But the really cheap things were of like a couple of generations old. So like
GBA sort of era.
not really. GBA is at a premium no matter
Yeah.
what.
Huh.
GBA, I think, was just a really popular system. A lot of people have nostalgia for. It's really the disc games that are cheap. So
Fair.
PS2 games like dirt cheap, PS3 games decently cheap, and PS1 games, a lot of them were quite cheap as well. So if like some people might not even call those retro, but I was finding a lot of games that I had been meaning to play, some Japan exclusive RPGs I didn't get around to, or ones that were just exorbitantly pricey here. I was getting for cheap. And I bought a decent amount of DS games, which I was kind of surprised myself. I had a decent amount of nostalgia for DS titles, even though I don't play. I don't know. I guess like some of them I really really like. Like this one series called we were mentioning it the other day, Survival Kids.
Oh yes, there's
There's
a new one just came out on the Switch too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a new one coming out for Switch 2, and this is a long-running series that they I think they re-released an old one for Nintendo Classics, and
Hmm.
I learned of this series through the DS through a title called Lost in Blue. So it's called like Survival Kids: Lost in Blue in Japanese, and I was able to get a copy in box for about 10-12 bucks. So I was really pleased with that. One thing I'll say in general is don't go to Akihabara expecting to find deals.
Hmm.
What I knew this going into it. So what I ended up doing was going to the suburbs.
Hmm.
So on a trip we had planned, my wife and youngest kid were going to the Sanrio land, like the Hello Kitty land, and it's like about an hour west of central Tokyo. And the oldest and I were not really into that. We wanted to use that day to do retro game hunting. So we went like with them on the train, like pretty much to the next station over. I think it was called Nagayama. It was about an hour and a bit outside of central Tokyo to a big secondhand chain called Book Off. And they have the original store is called Book Off, where they sell books, but they also typically sell CDs and games there, and they have other spin-offs like Mode Off or even Hard Off, believe it or not, and enough for hardware. But they have these mega centers called Book Off Super Bazaar, and there's only a few of those in the country, and one of those happened to be there. And we were there for maybe like 3 hours, and it was just like spoils like you would not believe. Like most of the main floor at that Nagayama branch was dedicated to games and CDs and even things like plushes. And you can get like old volumes of mangas there for like $1, compared to like the whatever 15 bucks you'll spend here in Canada. So I was just loving it there, and a great selection there. My kid and I both spent about $100 each on our first day, and that was considerable. Mostly for not really the cost; it's just like the size. It's like fitting into your luggage. And then we hit a bunch of spots. I told you on that road trip we took at. I think probably the second best, or maybe even the top, was the Surugaya, which is another notable secondhand chain. More for media than for like clothes or anything like that. Surugaya in Shizuoka. Shizuoka is a fairly big city in the prefecture of Shizuoka, and the flagship of that store is in Shizuoka, right by the main train station, and that's highly recommended as well. We happened to drive there, but just like a great balance of rarer kind of high end retro games, and then dirt cheap, like bottom of the barrel retro games for equivalently dirt cheap prices. I only had about an hour there because I had to think of my family and not wasting their time. But I spent most of my time looking at the kind of more higher end games that I had very little time to look at the lower end games, and I wish I balanced that out a little bit better. So, use your head, If you're going to try and replicate my experience, go to the smaller communities if
Off the
possible.
tourist trail.
Yeah, maybe even rent a car to go to some smaller communities and hit multiple of these shops. It is very tiring though, because most of these titles I showed you on screen on the video there are going to be in Japanese.
Of course, yeah.
So even if you know the title, just scanning through all the boxes, all the CD trays, it's going to take you a long time and a lot of
Different box art
translation.
often too, right?
Certainly. And it's just tiring because it's just in a random order, right?
Mm, mm.
So definitely start with the smaller communities. I think the Shizuoka Surugaya location is a no-brainer because it's right by the bullet train station. So on your way to Osaka or something like that, just stop there. Stop there for like 3, 4 hours. It's a nice city, Shizuoka. And go to that location. It's just like a 10-minute walk from the station and check it out. You'll have a blast for like half a day, and maybe you'll walk away with some hidden treasures. So that was a really great experience. And to round it off, I said we returned to Tokyo in the last week, and we did end up going to Akihabara. One thing about it is that there are still retro game stores there. They are still good. Their selection is like second to none. Their organization is fantastic. Like things are just kind of easier to find there. So the good stuff can be found. It's just at a premium, and the prices in Akihabara were easily 4, 5, 6 times what I was seeing in some of these other smaller locations.
Oh, yeah, so lots of opportunities to shop around there.
Yeah, you just got to be smart about it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's funny speaking about retro games. We've been talking about Game Boy games. You covered Gargoyle Quest, I think it was.
Right?
So I was back in Australia. I went digging through all of my old childhood collection and did find my old Game Boy, Game Boy Color, I should specify. And let me see if this little AMSR works here, but it still works. Loaded up some batteries. Yeah, it still operates. I mean, I don't want to like waste a bunch of batteries. I do see that there is like a DC port. Apparently you can get adapters to just plug it into the wall. So I'm going to see if I can track one of those down. And there's a couple of retro game stores here in Vancouver that I might go check out. I do need to do some research as to like the PAL and TSC compatibility. Australia obviously being PAL, so they may not be compatible. I'm not sure. But if you have any Game Boy recommendations that I should keep an eye out for, let me know.
So many good places. To hardware is a little bit harder to find, but yeah, those old machines are built like bricks. So wasn't there that video of some original Game Boy being in a tank in like the first Gulf War or something like that,
Well,
and it got bombed and it was still running. So yeah, they knew how to build them back then.
luckily, I took the batteries out, so it didn't like rust away the insides. The main thing I wanted to quickly talk about was that while I was in Sydney, I had the time to check out a board game convention over there. So this is PlayCon, operated by the Board Game Barbecue podcast. Long-running podcast that I've listened to over the years and enjoyed, and especially when I need I feel a little homesick and need to hear some of those Australian accents. But this was about 500 people. I think this is the second year they've operated, and from what I heard, they're going to be in a much bigger venue next year, so they are growing. So yeah, I spent 2 days down there. It was a bit of a trek out from where I was staying with family, so I made it up to 2 of the 3 days and got to play a bunch of games while I was there and network with some Australian friends, both old friends that I used to play games with, and a few other content creators in that space. So yeah, had a great time at PlayCon. So a couple of quick highlights. I did play finally Ahoy. So that is the game from Greg Loring Albright, who we recently had on the podcast to talk about Scum and Villainy. So this is, I mean, it's by Leader Games, who you will know from Root. This is the same artist, the same broad structure as Root, being an asymmetrical war game with very different strategies for each faction that players are playing. This was including a couple of the new expansions. So I was actually playing, what was it called, the Coral Cap Pirates, one of the new expansion factions there. So yeah, I had a great time with that. I've played Root a few times and struggled to really internalize the rules. It's too long in between games. I really need to dedicate some time to play a few times and internalize that the strategy in that game. But this I found similar in structure, but was a little easier to internalize. Partly that it is tile based. You start out with just a couple of tiles that's slowly expanding. So it's just I found it a little simpler to visualize where I was just visualize the space and what was possible within that. The faction I was playing was like did feel at least relatively advanced and had a lot going on compared to a couple of the others. In that I had basically six different ships. It is a pirate themes game if you have picked up on that. But I started with one ship and I could bring out up to six different ships. But each one of those had to line up two different requirements for when I could bring out this specific ship. And then that ship gave me a new ability that was also very situational. And so it felt like sort of patting your head and rubbing your stomach with like eight tentacles at once. It was very tricky to keep all these options in my head. I will say I did win quite handily, so maybe I'm just a natural at these games. But I did have a lot of fun with Ahoy. It was similarly to Root, very sort of player driven in just how the factions are balanced, right? This faction felt very similar to the Vagabonds in that I was just going around visiting locations, had like basically mini quests to go and visit specific locations. The others at the board couldn't really stop me. So my faction is a bit of a timer that the others are racing against. So they were head to head, literally having to fight each other for like area control constantly, while I was just off doing my own thing. So yeah, very asymmetrical, but good fun. I had a blast with Ahoy. Looking forward to checking that out some more.
Very nice. Anything else at the con that you found exciting?
Yeah, a couple of little games. Let's see. Speaking of Japan, my friend Des introduced me to a game called Harvest. So this is designed by Yukihito Morikawa. So not to be,
You
not
mean
to
this
be.
game?
Oh, you found a copy. Very good. I did give you a heads up to maybe look for a copy of that. This was published in 1992. I believe it's the only game he ever designs, and I couldn't find confirmation of this, but my friend told me that this was designed basically to be played on train tables, like a small game. I mean, obviously, most Japanese games are like have a small package, but small board space. You don't need much room. It's basically you play on a grid. It's like each player has a 2x2 grid, one of those for each player, and you're playing cards to basically match three. Like there's different vegetables, and you're playing the vegetables into the grid. Match three, you get to score them, but you only score the tiles on your segment of the grid. So you might score two of them, but one of the other players will score one of them. Some of them are positive points, some of them are negative points. This is very simple, elegant games that have a high level of interactivity. I had a blast with that, and I recommended that you look around while you were there. Obviously, that was very successful. It just recently in 2023 got a new print run in Japan. I don't think it's technically an English version, but it is a language independent game. You can probably pick up an import of that fairly easily.
Yeah, the box does not include English rules, but it includes.
I'm sure those are on BGG or something.
No, they're officially provided. You just have to download them from the website.
Okay. Cool.
There's an English translation, and it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So I just printed it out. Yeah.
Let's play that sometime soon.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So a couple of quick games. I played Hot Streak, which is streaking up the hotness charts right now on Board Game Geek. So this is a racing game from John Perry, CMYK Games. So similar to, I think, very Camelot is probably the similest comparison in that it's a horse racing betting game, ostensibly, except the horses in this case are mascots, sport mascots, racing on the field, and getting very confused, falling down, running the wrong direction, and so on. So it takes that sort of the thrill of those the horse racing games where no one controls a specific racer. Everyone is betting on the same shared races. So a thrill of sort of cheering on your preferred racer, obviously, but the fact that like these are not symmetrical races. They all start the game with slightly different abilities and like how fast they'll run, how likely they are to turn around, and then the deck that you're drawing cards from a deck to sort of see which racer moves, but each player is adding cards to this deck over the course of the game. So you're sort of subtly influencing some of these racers' abilities, how likely they are to do, which really just adds to this sense of investment in like because you are investing in one particular character, but because they're asymmetrical too, just you can really double down on getting you just get really invested in one specific character and their behavior in this game, and yeah, good fun to just cheer along with. I only managed to play one of those, one game of that. I do want to check that out some more. It's just an excellent production value. It has like a vinyl board that you sort of unroll from the box, and like one of the smallest details I just found endlessly satisfying was you can kind of slide the pieces across this vinyl and just in this incredibly satisfying way. So great tactility to this game. Really like chunky miniature, like pre-painted miniatures for these four races. Just a really nice little production. Looking forward to playing some more of Hot Streak.
Very cool. I'd like to mention another game. I mean, I just showed Harvest my copy that I bought in Japan on your recommendation. I didn't. I did spend a bit of time looking for board game stuff in Japan, but it's quite overwhelming because like looking for retro video games, all the labels are in Japanese, and it's sort of hard to determine like, is this a Japanese design title? Is this exclusive title? Is this just a rebrand of a title that's available in the West? That sort of thing. But I did manage to pick up a copy of this, Nana, which is a game that is available in the West. I believe it's called Trio from a different publisher. It's designed by Kaya Miyano, and I wanted to get the original Saibepu art, which is really charming,
very nice
animal art. And this game has won a Palme d'Or, I believe, in from France, the French Gaming Commission or something like that, among others. I definitely wanted to pick that up. It's a nice small package, so I was very pleased to get that one. And I didn't get much in the way of board game, tabletop game stuff other than that RPG stuff I showed you earlier. But that wasn't the end of my game-related shopping. One more area recommendation I'd like to make for game fans in Japan is visiting a department store called Parco, which exists in Shibuya. And it exists all over Japan, but in Shibuya in particular, the entire sixth floor is taken up by nerd stuff, which includes, not the least of which is the Capcom store, the Jump Shop, a giant Pokemon Center, a gigantic Nintendo store, of which there's only 3 in the country. There's one in Osaka, there in Tokyo at Shibuya Parco, and one in Kyoto as well. I think they just released one in New York, if I'm not mistaken. So it is possible for you to get that in the United States. And just recently they opened up the Sega flagship store. So this is all just kind of like goods from their games. It was a small shop, but they had lots of fun things from obviously popular series like Sonic the Hedgehog. They had stuff from even like RPGs like Metaphor and Persona. They had Persona related goods. They had some other stuff from some of their other popular in Japan series like Puyo Puyo and things like that. But of course, I really wanted to see a lot of the Yakuza related goods there. And I was almost, I was this close to buying some Yakuza body pillows. Not joking. There were some fun, cute plushes of Kiryu, Kazuma Kiryu, and what's his name?
Yeah, I was gonna make, he was supposed to be like a joke of which character,
good buddy.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up walking away with a more of a nostalgia-filled purchase, which was this guy right here.
Oh, cute.
The Sega logo plush, which I was very pleased to get.
That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, Majima is the best boy. So I was very pleased to get in there. It had just opened up the previous week, so I was pleased to go there. There's always things popping up I saw advertisements for, what did I see? I saw a Metaphor, Rifantasio Art of exhibit on in Osaka, I think it was, while I was
Cool.
passing by there. There's things popping up. You pointed out this Mother
Mm.
game series exhibit, which I did definitely want to go to. It was on my radar, but I just couldn't make
I
happen.
believe you had to like sign up to get access to it, but it was like
Yeah,
the original like 3D models from the original production of that game, I believe, on
right.
display.
The Mother series, which of course only a couple of the titles came to the West as
Mm.
Earthbound. Mother 2 is Earthbound, and I think more recently they released Earthbound Zero. It's available on Nintendo Classics as well. But so yeah, Shibuya Parko is definitely a recommendation. And the final thing I wanted to talk about in Japan that was a definite can't miss, but it's also hard to get into, is the Nintendo Museum in Kyoto. So Nintendo recently, somewhat recently, like within the last year or so, opened up a museum in Kyoto, a smaller town near Kyoto, near Uji actually. And you have to sign up for a lottery to get in.
Mm.
My
Mm.
wife, being a smart planner that she is, signed us up early for it, and we just managed to get in by sheer luck.
Very nice.
It was a fantastic experience. There's a lot of stuff you can check out online about it. The museum space is literally half of it, and then there's an interactive space, which is another half of it. Those two floors, and the museum space is just like kind of overwhelming. It's not a big space, but it's just like the nostalgia draws you in. You see box titles from all the regions, like Asia, Europe, North America, and some of the box art is completely different. You see some of Nintendo's earlier entertainment history making Hanafuda cards, and these more kind of like shooting gallery, like physical shooting gallery style entertainments, and even this like crazy grabby arm gadget that they released. There was a wing of the museum that was just prototypes. It was like unbelievable. Like you saw like Game Boy prototypes, like just like on the other side of this thin glass from you. Of course, you couldn't touch it, but it was just like a marvel to be like that close to some of these
Did they
prototypes
have
of
the
what could have
Nintendo
been.
PlayStation?
I don't think they did. No, I don't think they did. That thing's worth quite a bit, but they had lots of other impressive hardware there, and another half of the floor is this interactive area, which is really interesting. They wouldn't let. I think they only let you videotape in there, but they have like basically this like arcade classics area where you can play all the old Nintendo consoles. You can play like these like 3D versions of the Game and Watch games. You know the Game and Watch games that are like
Yes.
old
Yeah.
LCD. Like you have to move your body to move your character to fit
Huh.
the
That's
spots
cute.
there. They had this full size love tester. They had like 5 batting cages where you were shooting this old Nintendo like basically like ball pitcher device that shot these soft little balls at you, and you whacked them with plastic baseball bats. It was really cute and thematic, and we did that. And the absolute highlight for me and my wife was the multiplayer game controller thing. It's really hard to explain, but basically they had oversized controllers for every one of the retro consoles. So they had the NES, they had the Super NES, they had the 64, and then they had the Wii. And when I say oversized, I mean like there's no way one person can control them. So you have to control them multiplayer. So one person controls the D-pad, person controls like the run and jump buttons. And my wife and I did original Mario, and then Mario World, of course. And but you were seeing these kids do. Oh yeah, there was also the Wii Fit track, the
Oh,
Wii
the
Fit
balance
pad,
board.
the balance board, but
Wow.
it was big enough for 2 people to stand on. So 2 people had to coordinate the balancing of it,
Hey,
and
remember to leave room for the Wii Fit trainer.
yeah, and the Wiimotes were detached. You had to have multiple people carry them. It was like saw these two small children playing with the Wiimotes, and it like dwarfed them because like the Wiimote was like 5 feet tall or something like that. It was so funny, so
Must be
fun.
tall enough to. Must be taller than his Wiimote to go on this ride.
Yeah, it was absolutely hilarious an experience. And each of the games was only lasted like a minute and a half or
Yeah,
2.5 minutes. So it
cute.
was just like fun laughs with this great hardware. So I cannot recommend the Nintendo Museum more. It was absolutely a blast. And they have some exclusive merch that you can't get at those other fancy Nintendo stores, such as this
Oh my goodness.
oversized game controller.
Body pillow
Yeah, well, you can definitely bring this guy
for
to
a
bed.
small child, perhaps.
Yeah, so for those who can't see, I'm holding up a what, 3 foot tall, 3 foot long Super Nintendo controller. Of course, this is the colors that I had, the Super Famicom colors. And they had versions of these of the NES, the N64. You can get Wiimotes as well that were giant, and these are only exclusively available at the Kyoto Nintendo Museum,
Very cool.
and I just love it to bits. So I'm super pleased with that experience. Yeah, if you are a passing fan, have played a couple of generations of Nintendo hardware, go check it out. It's so much fun. And
Was like how much of the museum was in like Japanese versus English?
it was all in English, as in
Yeah. Okay.
the museum. Like it was just like display cases, right? It was just like boxes and stuff.
Right.
And it was in English and in Japanese. And the most
Bilingual.
fascinating detail was probably seeing they give a distribution of, for each console, how well it sold in each market. So it shows that some titles, some systems were like only popular in, home country in America, but other systems were popular in, North America, Japan, and Europe more so, or something like that. So it was really interesting to see the distribution of that. It made me think, well, there's a reason why so many of these retro titles exist in Japan, because those boxes never left the home market. So that was fascinating as well. And the interactive section was entirely in English as well. So basically, you either had a choice to display it in English or Japanese, or they just displayed it in both.
Awesome.
And another fun interactive experience was the, like, you remember the silent scope or the super scope?
Not the Oh, what was the rabbit hunt?
Well,
Duck hunt.
there's the
Duck hunt,
zapper,
sorry.
right? There's the
Yeah.
zapper
Yeah.
gun. But in the 90s for the Super Nintendo, they released a peripheral called the Super Scope. It was basically this
Okay.
bazooka that went over your shoulder. And they had this gigantic, like, wall spanning activity where, like, there were like 10 or 12 shooting stations, and you were all shooting towards taking down these Mario themed characters, and it was all digital and interactive, and it would rank the best shooters out of the bunch, and you can choose between the zapper or the super scope. So it was really cool, as someone who owned a super scope, to see them being put to good use. And it was like Mario themed, like the pirate ship, the floating pirate ships from Mario World were there, and the Koopa Kids. That was really a lot of fun as well. One small thing, we talked about gachas. I think this is probably the thing I was most happy to get, and this was exclusively from Shibuya Parko itself. It was a gacha where you got to choose from a segment of a controller, which is strange to say, but this is 1/3
Oh,
of an NES controller, but it is like scale size, and it's a key change.
it's a cool little like fidget toy.
I know, exactly. And this is exactly the piece I wanted to get. It was the NES style. They had the Famicom as well, but the buttons have the real resistance to them,
Ooh,
so
very
they
nice.
feel
Yeah.
perfect. It's a really nice fidget. I was happy to get that in Tokyo at Nintendo Museum, Nintendo store, I should say.
Yeah, I'd love to get there myself one day, hopefully.
Lots of fun stuff.
I just wanted to very quickly circle back to a small topic as part of PlayCon that I also got to, was that I spent like almost most of one day in the designer alley. They basically had like, there must have been like 30 games overall. They were in like in slots, like each there was like half a dozen games at one time in slots over the course of the weekend. But I played 4 or 5 of these. Emily from Shut Up and Sit Down dragged me into a game called Blood, a game about sucking hard, which shockingly was not about vampires, but about mosquitoes and basically like trying to catch them all in terms of like the blood types of people that you're sucking from, basically. So very novel little theme there. But yeah, there was some really fascinating games that I were pretty close to in a state that I would buy, basically. So really fascinating to see the Australian design scene doing really well. There was one there that a young woman who very meekly apologized. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not really a game designer. And I, of course, had to like yell at her as kindly as I could. Of course, you're a game designer. We're playing the game that you designed. And like, I want to be very inclusive in terms of what we count as a designer, right? Yeah, fascinating to see. And I mentioned partly in the sense that I am helping out a little in another convention here in Vancouver, starting for the first time later this year, called Protocon BC. And so, obviously, if you're interested in that, I'll drop the link in the show notes for more information. But it's basically going to be just playtesting, like just playtesting designs in progress. No finished products allowed, I guess. But as having appreciated that at TCTC, our local convention here as well, which had a large designer alley, I really enjoy seeing those so many creative ideas being brought into games that might not ever get to a final published state, but are still incredibly fascinating, and helping designers bring them to that state in which they might actually get published. So we're looking to grow that coming into I think it's in November this year. If you have some suggestions, we're looking for like friendly local game stores. We might put up a poster. So maybe if you're somewhere else in Canada that you could fit a poster to advertise Protocon, let us know and we'll sort you out. So yeah, really enjoyed that and seeing the indie design scene in Australia as well as a point of comparison. So as tough as the board game industry is right now, there is still a lot of creativity going on out there. So really enjoyed that. Hoping to see more of it soon.
Good to hear. Yeah, I need to get back in touch with the local design community here in Vancouver. Maybe it's time I dust off some of my old prototypes and see if there's anything there. But yeah, I mean, I always encourage other designers as well. It's great to see them fulfill their dreams of the games that they're creating.
So I think we'll leave it there. Running a little long. A lot of miscellaneous topics to discuss today, and I guess we didn't really clarify our structure here for those who are new to the podcast, perhaps. In that we had our appetizer of opening topics, and you normally have a main course of one game each that we're discussing. Today that was a little bit off topic in discussing our vacations, but we are going to bring it home with our third course that is dessert. So Mark, in dessert we normally talk about something that we've been enjoying outside of the gaming world.
Off topic stuff.
So what have you got for us today?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a really quick one, and this is something I did while I was on vacation. So I generally, this is something I do when I go on vacation, is I try and get a book that's kind of on theme. When I went to Cuba for my honeymoon, I got a history about Fidel Castro, and so this time around I wanted to get a Japanese-themed book. So I got a nonfiction, a memoir, which is something I usually don't get, is memoirs, because I think, most people aren't that interesting. But this one I was interested in because I've heard of something that came out of it. This one is called Tokyo Vice, a memoir by Jake Adelstein, a American-born reporter who is the first non-Japanese reporter for the Yomiuri Shimbun, which is one of the largest newspapers in Japan. And this book was published in 2009. And this is about his entire career, coming up in Japan from a cub reporter, working in several beats, and then eventually moving into Vice. That's the title of the story. And it goes even beyond that, and his connection with basically Vice, the sex trade, and organized crime. It's pretty fascinating material and really eye-opening. And it was fantastic to read while you were actually in the country because you kind of got a feel of the atmosphere. Even though it is talking about a time that is in the past, it is talking about things that are in the past. So not all of the things that he's mentioning may be existing in the same way it is right now. In a lot similar way that, Las Vegas and New York are not the same as they were 20, 30 years ago, right? Those sort of places change. But I had initially heard about this story, this memoir, because I think it's Max or HBO has released a television adaptation of
The
it.
name is perfect for a TV series, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably was optioned. It was actually optioned many years ago to be a film. Daniel Radcliffe playing Jake Edelstein, but it didn't end up happening. But eventually, with streaming, it became a possibility again. I think the first season is out, and it co-star a guy called Ansel Elgort. I don't know who this is.
I know that name, yeah.
Is playing Edelstein, the primary character, the reporter,
This is a
and
dramatization, then, I presume.
yeah, that's right. And Ken Watanabe, who's a proper Japanese
Oh,
film
yeah.
star, is playing presumably the kind of older kind of cop mentor, who is a primary character in the story. So I listened to it all throughout over the course of the month. It was a really easy read, like lots of salacious stuff, lots of fascinating things. Um, Highly recommended. It'll be eye opening, and it just seems like tailor made to be dramatized because like the main character of Edelstein, he like he comes across as kind of like a bumbling American a bit because he's a fish out of water, right? It's a fish out of water story. He's the audience stand-in. Unless you're Japanese, you might not know a lot of the details, and if you are Japanese, you might already know, so it wouldn't be as fascinating. So to me, it was very fascinating, not having grown up there, to learn about organized crime. If you like the Yakuza games, you might like to hear about the connections with vice and crime. And I definitely am excited to check out the dramatization. One note is that in reading up a little bit about this, is some controversy over the accuracy of the stories he's telling in his
Sounds like some dramatic
memoirs.
levity, yeah.
Yeah, and I never really took it that literally. Like I don't expect that this guy is a saint and is telling everything with 100% accuracy. Of course, he's going to embellish or dramatize or whatever. But at the same time, one of the key points of tone in the memoir is that he's pretty like self-deprecating. Like he makes a lot of mistakes and he owns up to a lot of the mistakes. Surely not all the mistakes he made, but he at least opens up to his failings, like sometimes literal failings that had some like lethal consequences in some cases, or at least life-threatening consequences. So it's well worth checking out. Fascinating read, and I listened to it in audiobook form. And the author himself reads the audiobook, so it was extra intimate as a result. Recommended.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend curiously about that issue with sort of non-fiction books and the struggle, especially with those that aren't like academic and peer-reviewed,
Right.
knowing how seriously you're supposed to take them. They are, at the end of the day, entertainment rather than information.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's stories, right? Whether it's
yeah.
your story or a made up story, you're always going to have a perspective. You're always going to stand somewhere.
Biases and yeah.
So I didn't expect it to be, so
As long as you know that going
accurate.
in, you can have a good time. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of the characters in the story are also under pseudonyms. So, like, because he didn't want to give up sources and also contacts in the police force. So, it's nonetheless, the characters are fascinating. The situations are fascinating. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, just quickly, my recommendation this week is, I mean, last episode we were talking about, or was it last episode? Two episodes ago, I've lost track of time. We're talking about all the amazing things you can find at your library. And just before the vacation, I dropped by my local branch, saw a comic that I didn't recognize, but that looked fascinating, and picked it up on a whim. It's called The Spire. So I didn't actually catch what year this came out, but it was a limited run. I think it was something like 10, 12 issues, and I just got the tome that had all of them in one. So this is by Simon Spurrier, Jeff Stokely, and Andre May. So this is a fascinating mix of like sci-fi, fantasy, post-apocalyptic settings. It's basically like a giant mega city, like tiered, your classic class warfare. Like you've got the poors at the bottom, the rich at the top, and sort of that class conflict. And from the perspective of basically the city watch, I guess, the captain of the city watch, trying to solve a murder mystery. So it's fairly focused in who it's following, and a fairly small cast of core characters, but hinting at this much larger world and the sort of larger political intrigue that's going on. There's like the outside of the city is sort of this wasteland. It evokes a little bit like Nausicaa. I got some vibes from that. The sort of the creatures and fantastical people living out in the wasteland there. I mean, not to compare this all to the shortcuts of other books, but the City Watch vibes obviously evoke from me Discworld and the City Watch in that. And this does have a good sense of sort of humor, that dark comedy mixed in with some great action there too, and a few twists that I personally didn't see coming. So I found this quite a thrilling ride. The artwork is like, it's this sort of almost cel shaded, very, very cartoony, obviously, but very sepia toned. Like it has like sort of sun washed, slightly faded look to it. It looks very, the post-apocalyptic vibe there. So I really enjoyed that. That was a really surprise hit for me. Probably the best comic that I've enjoyed in a while. I've been meaning to get back and get through my huge pile of comics, but I keep finding more that I'm interested in. So yeah, really enjoyed The Spire.
Nice. That reminds me of the Spire TTRPG, which
Yeah, well, yes.
I happened to play at TCTC this past year, which is of course the same metaphor. It's about class structure and striation and kind of like Snowpiercer or whatever too in the
Yes.
opposite
Yeah.
direction. It's an old chestnut, but still a good one.
Yep. Those tropes are popular for a reason.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's it. We're back in the routine. We'll be coming back to you with weekly episodes from here on out. Should be a little more structure, and I do have some special guests lined up in the near future. So stay tuned for that. It's been a little bit of little tricky getting back into the groove of actually playing games. A lot of my friends are still away on their own vacations. I do have a new TTRPG lined up tomorrow, and a second campaign coming soon. So looking forward to checking those out. I have some Nintendo Switch 2 impressions that I'll probably get to next episodes.
Nice. I've been doing very light gaming, as you might imagine, on vacation, but some retro titles been playing, so probably take another glimpse at an older game.
Excellent. Yeah, well, yeah, send in those Game Boy Color recommendations. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can contact us at omnigamersclub@gmail.com or at our website, omnigamers.club.
Right, and go check us out on YouTube if you haven't yet. We post videos of all the upcoming episodes that we put out. And of course, if you want our back catalog, you can go check us out on podcatcher of your choosing. All our early titles are only available in audio form. And since we never cover timely games, there's lots of good material to plumb the depths of back there as well.
Yep, we always appreciate word of mouth. It's the only way to spread the word and get new followers. So appreciate leaving reviews or spreading the word. You can find us on Blue Sky, the Omnigamers Club there, and you can find me at Board Game Feast.
Yeah, and I'm Omnigamer Mark on Blue Sky as well.
Excellent. Well, welcome back, Mark. It's been great talking to you again. Hopefully we can meet up and play some games very soon.
Definitely.
And for all of you out there, I hope you have a balanced diet of gaming. Bye.
Bye.